Hello. So if you would like a little bit of a sneak peek on what we're going to cover in this course, I'm going to show you a few past student examples. So first of all, what are we doing in this course? It's an intro to graphic design class, and we have a couple of goals here. We're learning some software. Specifically, we really focus on Illustrator, and towards the end we work with InDesign. And then we're learning the vocabulary and how to see as a graphic designer. So that's what all of our projects are about. It's about learning the vocabulary, learning like the different types of terminology you use when you're discussing design, and what are the things that we're looking for. Specifically, we're going to try to break down the page. The page shouldn't just be a single page anymore, but it should be about the interaction between all the different elements on the page. So here's a little bit of a summary of the things that we're doing, but I figured I'd just give you a super quick preview of what some of these assignments are. So remember, the assignments are about learning some software skills as well as thinking about design skills. So we start off with something very simple, which is discussing symmetry and asymmetry. And this is going to be done in Illustrator, and it's a great way to just jump into Illustrator and start learning how to work with the shapes. But as you're making this simple assignment, this first one is in symmetry, and then the second one is going to be asymmetry. I want you not just to think about the designs that you're creating in these spaces, but to think about how they're activating the space. So you can see there are these words here underneath, passive, less passive. That's referring to how do you see the space. So we have the design, and then we have the space around it. And did your design activate that space or not activate it at all? So that's the first one we're looking at. Then in that same first week, we're also looking at scale and how simply changing the size of things can make a big difference. So you're going to take 6 word groups that are opposite of each other, and you're going to do 3 different versions. You're going to notice that we do versions a lot in this course. And you're going to use scale to try to show like the difference between these. So as you can see, we have like hilly and flat is getting larger here. So it's the same word groups, just you repeat them over and over again, trying to use the size and the placement of the words to be able to represent their meaning. Then we're looking at the figure-ground relationship. So figure-ground is something we start talking about with symmetry and asymmetry. Simply, what's the relationship between the subject and then its background? So in an interesting figure-ground relationship, you might really activate that background so it sort of looks like it's also the design. So in this example here, it's not even clear which one is the figure and which one is the ground. So this is kind of a reversible relationship. Or in this example here, we can see the clear K, but the way that it's positioned, so it really takes up the whole box, activates that background space. The white almost looks like arrows. Okay, so that's a simple assignment, and that we're using again to get familiar with Illustrator, but also start learning about the different types of font. Then we jump over to Photoshop a little bit, and we do have a couple of assignments where we're talking about layering and transparency, and just how layering can affect the image once you start putting multiple layers or multiple images on top of themselves. Also in Photoshop, we talk about framing, and you're going to do a whole series, I think it's like 6 different ones of this, where you're going to take the same quote, and you can pick different quotes. This person chose, "The philosopher creates, he doesn't reflect," and you put it with an image, but you're going to try to change the framing 6 times. So look at the difference with this one, for example, where there's a lot of black space and the text sits by itself and the image is smaller. It really changes. So you're going to make 6 different variations of that. And then we're moving on to trying to be expressive with type. So you're going to use your name, and you're going to create all of these characters, so to speak, with the type to represent these different characters that I've already given you, such as your name with hiccups, or that your name as magician. Scroll to one of the other pages. Your name as a taxi driver. So this is also going to be an Illustrator, and again, it's just a great way to sort of get into Illustrator and get familiar with making the shapes, and to try to be creative, thinking about scale, about color, about your font types, and also how you can distort text, all to be able to make the text look like the character it's representing. Then continuing on in Illustrator, we're working now focusing on the grid, and for this project you're going to be creating 16 different icons on a grid. So you can see there's a lot of sort of negative space here, a background space, but everything is still lined up on a grid. And then there's going to be some text that you're going to add to that. So you're going to make all of these little icons. You can pick any subject that you want, as long as you're making them from scratch in Illustrator. Then we start to talk about hierarchy, because now we're thinking, we're going to take all of the stuff that we've been learning and we're going to start thinking about magazine layouts. So hierarchy is when you basically tell the reader what is the most important thing on the page, what should you look at first. And you can do this with several techniques, in particular color, scale, alignment, things like that. So this is going to be our first just a little warm-up, getting us thinking about hierarchy. And then you're going to take an existing menu, just the content of a menu, and then do several redesigns, thinking all the time about hierarchy. So you're taking the same content and you're trying to redesign it in 3 different ways. So here are the 3 different versions from this one. Oh, 4 different versions actually. But always trying to think about the hierarchy, thinking about what should stand out. Okay, and then we're going to jump over in the last 2 weeks to InDesign, just to briefly touch about InDesign, which is another great software. And you're going to have a couple of simple assignments just working in InDesign, thinking about that grid structure again, like we were with the icons, but now thinking about it maybe more for magazines. And you will have a homework assignment, which is to do a 2-page spread, thinking about the grid, thinking about figure-ground relationship, thinking about hierarchy. So the course is very cumulative. And then we go into our final, which is a magazine. It's a 4-page spread from a magazine that you can do in either Illustrator or InDesign. You have a cover, and you have 2-page spread, and you have a table of contents. So that's the little sneak peek of what we're going to be doing in this course. I hope you're going to enjoy it.